Is the largest South Asian film festival created in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and in support of South Asian filmmakers and festivals inclusive of all South Asian voices around the world. The festivals in CoSAFF include Tasveer South Asian Film Festival, Chicago South Asian Film Festival, the DC South Asian Film Festival, Mosaic International South Asian Film Festival, Nepal America International Film Festival, the South Asian Film Festival Montreal, and the Vancouver International South Asian Film Festival. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special live event, Someone to Blame, the Ahmed Timol Inquiry. This panel is presented in partnership with Festival Accès Asie. So a big thank you to our CoSAFF sponsors and event partners for helping us put together this wonderful festival. We are going to be taking audience questions during this panel, and some of you have already taken advantage of that. Please send your questions to the panel at www.slido.com using the event code #46140. Now, I'd like to introduce to you the filmmaker, the director of Someone to Blame, the Ahmed Timol Inquiry, Enver Samuel. Enver was born in South Africa, and he grew up in England, Ghana, and Zambia. He studied both practical and theoretical aspects of film and television, both locally and abroad in England, Australia, and Germany. He's worked on numerous TV productions and high-profile corporate videos for the Nelson Mandela Foundation, the Kaiser Family Foundation, among others. He's also lectured in television journalism and production at the Institute of the Advancement of Journalism and the Academy of Television and Screen Arts. He's traveled extensively overseas and has a wealth of experience traveling in Africa, having visited over 30 countries on the continent. He's worked on hundreds of hours of content for TV, mainly in reality. He's filming a reality show at the moment, in fact, 2 hours outside of Johannesburg, magazine, sport, documentary, music, and talk shows. He produced and directed the documentary Indians Can't Fly for SABC3 Docuville in 2015. That was an official selection for the Durban International Film Festival in 2016, Toronto's South African Film Festival in 2016, and the Festival Cinéma d'Afrique Lausanne in 2018. Indians Can't Fly was nominated for 3 South African Film and TV Awards for Best Director, Best Documentary, Best Editor for Documentary Short, and won the Golden Horn for Best Achievement in Directing and Best Documentary Short in 2016. He recently won a SAFTA for Someone to Blame, this film that we've all seen today. Best Documentary Short 2019 and Best Documentary in the Zanzibar International Film Festival 2019. It's also screened at the Vancouver South Africa Film Festival, Encounters South Africa International Film Festival, and the Input Bangkok 2019. Enver is currently working on 2 documentaries, The Bomber's Wife and Murder in Paris, Pourquoi, Dulcie September, which recently won the UCT Screencubator Encounters Impact Springboard and was selected for the Durban Film Mart 2019 at the Durban International Film Festival. And now over to Raghuji.
Hello, everyone. Welcome from Montreal, right behind me. We all saw just now Someone to Blame, a fabulous film that vividly recreates the horrors of apartheid regime in South Africa with a focus on Ahmed Timol, the fallen hero. Welcome to this question and answer session with filmmaker Enver Samuel. We will be starting off with a few questions from our side and then move on to the audience questions. Ivy?
Okay, and we're very, very happy that you can be with us today. We'd like to know what inspired you to make this film. Was there a personal connection between you and Ahmed Timol, the ANC, or the Communist Party of South Africa?
I think Someone to Blame is almost like a second part, because the first part was Indians Can't Fly, and that was the documentary. The term Indians Can't Fly was coined by the apartheid security police when they threw Ahmed Timol out of the 10th floor of John Foster Square security police building. So for me, this was a natural follow-up 2 years later, when word came that there was going to be an official inquest into the death of Ahmed Timol. This was a historic case, because it was the first time in South Africa that something like this had happened. An overturning of an inquest. The original inquest said that he committed suicide, and so for me, it was like a no-brainer to do the follow-up story, Someone to Blame. So there was no personal connection to the Timol family. It was just my curiosity to find out about Ahmed Timol, because I actually didn't even know who Ahmed Timol was. That's the sorry history of South Africa, is like we don't know a lot of our heroes and heroines. We know the big ones like Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, Robert Sobukwe, but there are thousands of unsung heroes like Ahmed Timol, Dulcie September, the current documentary I'm working on. Thousands of those unsung heroes that are forgotten in South Africa. And so I was actually ashamed that I didn't know who Ahmed Timol was. And once I dug into his life, I was possessed almost to try and tell that story.
Yeah, Enver, this film is a film within a film. There's the entire sequence of justice for Timol from 1971 to 2017. And then there is Ahmed Timol himself, the revolutionary with great integrity, compassion, quest for knowledge, etc., etc. People who see this particular film may not know much about Ahmed. It's a fascinating sequence of court scenes. But tell us something about Ahmed himself, as you came to know.
So from my research into who Ahmed Timol was, I learned that he was just an ordinary South African. He was a school teacher, and he decided of his own accord to go overseas and seek training for the ANC and the underground movement. Then he met a woman, and in England, and they fell in love. And he could have easily have stayed there and carried on with a different life and different path. But he decided to South Africa.
We're having a few technical difficulties.
Did I break up there?
Yes, just broke up a little bit.
Well, we're getting you all the way from South Africa, so I suppose it's not that evident.
Let's see. Okay, let's.
Yeah, probably we should let the audience know that you are speaking from a hotel in far off South Africa, and that's probably the reason for the poor internet connection. However, we'll try our best.
For some of our audience viewers who are interested in learning more about this film, we can't recommend Indians Can't Fly Highly enough. It gives a lot more background into what happened during that first, what happened to Ahmed Timol in 1971, and just gives a bit more background about what happened in the commission in the High Court in 1972. And so almost 45 years later, we had the second case in the Magistrates Court. It looks like we have Enver back, I believe.
Yeah, back.
Yeah,
good. Okay. Should I carry on?
Yeah, we're just talking a bit about Ahmed and what he was like.
Yes. So he like I said, he was just an ordinary school teacher, loved by the kids that he taught, and faced with a big decision: do I come back to South Africa to pursue my beliefs to get us a better country, or do I stay in England and have a beautiful life? And he chose to come back, and within a matter of months he was detained, was tortured. So I think that's the thing that gravitated to him, was that why did he make that decision, and why was he so convicted about following that cause? And for me, that's what marks unsung hero, someone that's prepared to stick to his beliefs no matter what, in the face of great danger. He still came back to South Africa.
Indeed, extremely brave, and no one could have necessarily predicted that that's what would have happened to him. Was just talking about Indians can't fly. Imtiaz Kaji, his nephew, ends on a very cautiously optimistic note in the earlier film, even though justice hadn't been done for Ahmed in the judicial system. Sadly, we understand that his mother died without getting any conclusions about his death, but the case was revived through his own, through Imtiaz's incredible Herculean efforts to bring this, the whole situation to justice. And the case was revived after they got hold of the inquest records in 2005. Can you tell us a bit about how that came about, and whether or not Imtiaz anticipated that the trial would be reopened, and that justice would be rendered, in fact?
Yes. I think a lot of it's on Imtiaz's shoulders, that he never gave up his quest for justice. So with his persistent knocking on, there was a momentum that gathered, and with the Ahmed Timol Family Trust, they virtually forced the National Prosecuting Authority to reopen the case. And it helped that they had the original inquest documents. So, and then this became the first of historic case to be reopened. The trailblazing case, because now there are about 22 other cases that are going to face the courts. The unfortunate thing is that it's taken so long. Like you said, Ahmed Timol's mother passed away basically of a broken heart, not knowing why and who killed her son. And I mean, it's 2020, and there are hundreds of cases that have not been looked at. And there's suspicion that when we had our TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, that there was a deal done with the new ANC government to keep some of these cases under wraps. We don't know why, and we don't know the reasons, but no one seems to have answers why it's taken so long. Yeah.
It's interesting because we have the lawyer who's quite elderly, in the film, George Bezos, who says, there's nobody to blame, but there must be someone to blame.
Yes. Yes, definitely. He actually passed away a few weeks ago.
Oh.
He was 94. Yeah. But it has to be someone to blame, because we know that people working for the apartheid state conducted these killings with impunity. As I said, there has to be someone to blame.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was curious, both in this film and in the previous film, Indians Can't Fly, there is this eloquent African gentleman, who makes such a poignant I would say, poetic statements in the film, such as the phoenix that reignited the fury of the defeated elders. Who is this gentleman and what was his role in the film and in connection to the Ahmed family?
Oh, so he's actually just he's an actor that used to recite the poem. The poem was written by the son of an activist in South Africa, and he writes these poems very eloquently. And I knew that poem and its significance and its meaning had direct correlation to Ahmed Timol's life and his quest and his journey. So I just thought I would fuse the poetry into the documentary to give it an extra dimension.
Yeah.
It's quite beautiful. It really adds the texture to the film. And you've talked about documentary as a public form of discourse, at times impaired by low budgets, but always concerned with social justice. I'm curious about how this film and Indians Can't Fly was funded.
So they were funded national South African Broadcasting Corporation, but after a lot of work to persuade them to broadcast it and commission it. So the amount of money for a commission like that, get that website is not. So in the end, as a filmmaker, you have to add your additional funding into the production. So I basically got funding for them from the broadcaster.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, somehow this film also reminded me a bit of Wormwood, which filmmaker Errol Morris did, also about someone who seemed to fly out a window under the watchful eyes of the CIA. So I'm curious who some of your own documentary filmmaker mentors and heroes are. Whose work do you like to watch?
Well, I've watched, there's a South African filmmaker that I hold in high regard. His name is Riyad Des, and he made the film Miners Shot Down. And again, it's about seeking justice. This was about the Marikana when those miners by police. I mean, about 20 or 30 miners were gunned down, and this is happening in New South Africa, and the social impact of that documentary was far-reaching. So I admire documentaries where they have a life after they've been broadcast. So it's not just about the broadcast date and 1 or 2 film festivals. It's more about the social impact that those documentaries establish discourse about the state of the country and the country's past. Because these type of documentaries look at transitional trauma, and that's a big thing that we're still facing in South Africa. We haven't healed as a nation, and these type of documentaries force you to look at that past, confront that past, but then also see like how to change things and how to improve things in the country. And then I'm flattered that
just as we're getting to hear about his heroes.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Is it Errol Morris? Is that how you pronounce it?
Errol Morris, yes.
You mentioned Errol Morris.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, his documentaries are just amazing. So I watched Wormwood on Netflix not too long ago, and I was quite riveted.
Yes. Well, I know other people have asked whether or not you're planning on doing something with this footage from these two documentaries, possibly turning it into something longer or something serialized. Is that something that you would consider if you have the money? Yes.
Yes, actually, there are some interesting comments from the audience. Maybe I could report a couple of them.
Golden question.
Both.
I would love to do that because there's also new development. You know, I need a funder. I can.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, right.
Yes, we found obviously, just like anyone else, we found the movie fascinating on so many counts. And one of the themes which both Ivy and I picked up was this concept, this phenomenon of the banality of evil, right? So we see so many things which are evil in this movie, but the sad part of it is that you cannot identify a group of people as born evil. You know, there is evil in all of us, and it depends on how it's nurtured. And very often, when you look back upon a evil period, you find they're all very common people, ordinary people who committed the evil. You know, so that you can see in the apartheid era of South Africa, and you can even see it in the modern age. We don't have to look far to see evil being done by very ordinary, common, good people.
Yes, it's interesting because when we have the two gentlemen from the South African forces, they're very matter of fact. Oh yes, everyone knew about Room 1026, and oh yes, this happened, and they speak about it with no particular regret or acknowledgement, and I think that's what makes seeing this film ultimately so challenging as a viewer, because we haven't really found exactly who that someone is to blame. Everyone is acknowledging, yes, this was the situation at that time, but they're not saying, I was responsible. I don't remember, they say. I don't remember that exactly, and so how could you not remember something like that is, I think, right. What your normal viewer would be shocked that you wouldn't remember participating in that kind of activity.
Yeah, and this film is intimately connected with Indians Can't Fly, and Indians Can't Fly, it gives us some perspective on how one set of people or viewed by the other set of people. In Indians Can't Fly, Ahmed is told, why are you coming and fighting for these causes here? Go back to India, and you can see this kind of attitude even here,
Yes.
And, if you go back to the history, you find that the Afrikaans, the whole settlement is because of the India connection, because of the Portuguese, finding a route to India around Africa. And that became a point where they could settle down for rest and things like that. Ultimately, the whole country came about in the present format because of the Indian connection, right? So I found it very interesting.
I think we have Enver back. Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. So I think you were.
Sorry about the.
No. I mean, really, you are far from a strong internet connection. We're just really happy that you're here with us. So you were just finishing up about some of the documentary filmmakers and some of your own thoughts about what you might do if funding were available.
Yes, so I was saying that with the old or the first documentary, Indian Can't Fly, then the follow-up, Someone to Blame, there are also new developments with the case that if I could get a generous funder, I'll definitely make another one or series. Yes.
Well, I think Raghu has another question for you.
Yeah, I have one or two questions, but I thought I'd give you some of the questions which are coming in from the audience as well. I don't want them to be left behind. And one of the questions from the audience is, why did you choose to tell this story? But I think you already answered that. And have you had any personal connection with South Asian diaspora in South Africa? That as well you answered. And Drew from the audience asked, do you think this story and its significance in Africa has ramifications for the South Asian diaspora around the world?
Well, I think the fact that we have a reopening of an inquest is definitely a sort of a leading light for countries that have suppressed and committed atrocities in the past. I mean, I think you have those problems in Sri Lanka and other countries too, where atrocities have been committed and nothing's happened. So this is an example of what can be done.
Yes, we have another question. And again, a lot of questions from the audience about what's happening in South Africa at this moment. So Sarah asks, the film ends by saying that there's still a struggle. What's the current situation of activists and dissenters in South Africa? Are South Asians actively involved?
So currently we're going through a crazy time in South Africa. You know, the ANC, our liberation heroes, have almost turned on the nation in terms of you know, all the corruption and all this it's mind-blowing corruption that is really hurting the economy of the country. It's become endemic. One asks how did these liberation heroes turn like that? And it's something that the country is looking very closely at the moment. We're almost in a dark place with how things have changed so dramatically. And with regards to the South African community that has roots to India, there are quite a few activists that were involved in the struggle and currently also involved in trying to change things around within the country.
Thank you for that. I think that it's a sad tale, although not unusual, as you have mentioned. In terms of whether or not South Asians are actively involved, are you aware of any kind of community involvement or mobilization to the same degree that had happened in the during the apartheid era?
Well, I mean, now that apartheid is over, it's not the same as it used to be, things are changing in the country rapidly. We faced with COVID, faced obsessed with massive corruption. So when activists come out, we come out as one, as activists for the so it's not so much as splintered groups.
Right. Raghu, I think you have.
Yeah, there's another question which I could, what's your next project and what kind of stories are you drawn to telling?
So my next project, I briefly mentioned the name. It's another documentary called Murder, and it's all over the. I mean, there was chief rep in Canada. She was a chief representative in France for the ANC. So unofficial ambassadors during apartheid. And in 1988, when opening the door of the ANC office, she was assassinated. She was shot 5 times in the. And this is a documentary that tries to unearth why she was assassinated. And I'm telling it through a Dutch journalist's eyes. Her name is Evelyn Koning, who has written a book on Dulcie September and had over 30-year quest to find the killers of Dulcie September. If you Google the name Dulcie September, you'll be dumbfounded at the amount of information that comes out. And when you look at the TRC report onto her death, the list of potential killers of Dulcie September, it's like in a spy novel. So what was this 50-year-old school teacher, again a school teacher, who was forced to leave the country because she was banned and she had to go into self-imposed exile also in the early 70s, and then was posted to France after being in England and Zambia, posted to France, made a lot of fuss there about the apartheid government and the French government being in collusion in terms of arms deals, sanctions, busting. And then 5 years later, she was assassinated. And it's just a mind-boggling story. So those are the stories for some reason I'm drawn to. And again, it's another unsung heroine. But if you Google her name and see how much information there's on her and her killing, you'll be surprised that why don't I know who Dulcie September is? Just like you might have asked, why don't I know who Ahmed Timol is? So, and I said there are hundreds of these cases in South Africa. So for some reason, I'm drawn to telling these stories.
Yeah, as our festival director Dushan told you earlier, you will be most interested in the films that you'll be making. We would like to learn more about them. There are 2 comments from the audience I'd like you to know. I think they're not questions, they're more like comments. One is about miners shot down, remembering Marikana on 16th August 2012. South African police opened fire with live ammunition on thousands of striking platinum. I don't know what that means, but you might know.
Platinum mine. I think they're mining platinum.
Yeah. And the other comment is from Biren among the audience. It says, in India, the collusion of the security police in a gang rape case was reported in BBC News today. So we must continue to fight for social justice. So more films are welcome from you. That's what it means, I suppose.
It's one of the interesting points I felt during the film is that someone, and I can't remember who, if it was Shannon Ibrahim perhaps, who said that the first Truth and Reconciliation Commission was almost like a prelude, and really what was happening later on, people had more of an opportunity to kind of absorb what had happened. And as you talked a bit about kind of the trauma and the fact that people are still processing that trauma, and in fact you had a psychologist, as part of the film. I wonder if you can talk about that a little bit, about the TRC and about as a collective nation processing trauma. Where is that at, or is there more trauma now because of all the corruption that's happening?
So yes, that's interesting question. I mean, the TRC was paraded as being the committee that would look into and give us answers and give us convictions, and that never happened. Perpetrators of atrocities were encouraged to come and basically confess to their crime, and then they would be given amnesty. And a lot of them didn't come to the TRC. And if you didn't, you were supposed to be prosecuted, and that never happened. So many people see the TRC as a big kind of whitewash, and we struggle to grapple with why there seems to have been some deal that was done between the current government and the old, and we don't seem to know why that was done. Was it because they were scared to have their own TR? There was a lot of spies that the old government had recruited within the ANC. They didn't want those stories to come. We don't know, but the TRC went a little way because it gave families a platform to air their trauma, but it didn't finish what it was supposed to do. That's the big question. Why didn't it finish what it was supposed to do? And so a lot of families are still, and I think the TRC concluded in about 1996, 98, families still don't have answers from them. Families are still struggling to find the bones of their loved ones. Families are still trying to find answers. Just working with the family of Timol and September, I see firsthand families are affected by this trauma of not knowing what happened and why is there been no justice. So the window is opened for someone from the outside, and you see this thing. It festers, and it's been festering for many years. And the body language, everything, it just tells a story of deep transitional that has not been solved. It's not been sorted. It's these are the things that sit with us, and they sit very heavily on us.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because that model of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission has been used in Canada also for missing and murdered Indigenous women, and also for residential schools. So it's interesting to hear you say that, in fact, it could have been more successful and brought more closure to very tragic situations. I'm sorry I interrupted, Raghu.
That's okay. I was saying that at the best of times, what you call truth has many versions, but then every passing day obscures it even further and makes it difficult to reveal what exactly the truth is, because different people perceive it differently, right? Anyway, the film says that when the final verdict was delivered in 2017, no one in the audience knew what to say or what to do, until someone, I mean, the person is not even able to recall, says someone from the Communist Party shouted, "Long live the memory of Timul." So my question would be, now this oppression was against the apartheid activists only, or was against the whole Communist Party, some kind of McCarthyism practiced in South Africa, wholesale against the Communist Party?
So Ahmed Timol was was a member of the South African Communist Party.
Yeah.
Yes. So you know, and during that time, during apartheid, if you were a member of the South African Communist Party, you were seen as being the devil. So you know, this was something that he was supposed to be secret, but for some reason the apartheid police knew about. So what you saw in 2017 was members of the current South African Communist Party just celebrating the verdict.
Yeah. You know, Dushyant recalls that there was one Yvonne September, who was a South African anti-apartheid political activist. Probably you know about her. And there was also the, if I remember right, the landlady of Ahmed Timol, who was persecuted because Ahmed had carried many documents. It was in her house. And if I remember right, she moved away from South Africa, right? So yeah. I suppose there are many people.
Yes, I mean, the security police would look at every avenue to put pressure on you. So no matter, even if you were third party, they would come down very hard on that third party just to make your life even more difficult.
Yeah. So there is Priya from the audience who wants to know from you, what makes a good documentary according to you?
So for me, I mean, what makes a good documentary is I guess when you finish watching the documentary, you've got to have questions that challenge the status quo and it's got to lead to the thing that I mentioned, the social impact. So it shouldn't just be for entertainment value. It should be there to be a tool, to get an inquest opened, a tool to assist in the murder case of Dulcie September. As the current one, the one we're working on, the French lawyers that are looking into getting Dulcie September's case reopened want to use the documentary in their motivation to get the court case opened. So I guess is it activist documentaries, social impact documentaries that have a life after they've been made, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. The curious then, you know, what happens afterwards. You mentioned that you yourself hadn't really heard that much, that you yourself didn't know about Ahmed Timol. Is his story now a part of curriculum for schools, or, you know, will his memory be kept alive? There, someone else in the film, and I'm sorry, I can't recall, who said, you know, we cannot leave the newer and younger generations with half truths, you know, and or we cannot leave them with, you know, fake news, fake information about this. What I mean, what are the lessons that are being learned by society in general to keep these stories and these people in everyone's mind?
Well, with the case, the 2017 inquest into the death of Ahmed Timol, I mean, this was big news. I mean, there was world press, the world media. It was on the television every. So that really put the other cases on the map. The cases that haven't come to court. So, and then with regards to curriculum, these are things that are being looked at now, that these are the stories, this is the history that South African children should learn about. So there's been active movement to change curriculum to reflect this. The unsung heroes and the path that they chose, and basically when we got to freedom in South Africa, it's because the hundreds and thousands of Ahmed Timols and Dulcie Septembers and people like that.
Yes, it's well, it seems by your own definition, you've been quite successful, because you've managed to keep these cases in the fore, and to get people thinking about it, and to make sure that these cases are still going to be prosecuted and brought to the attention of the world community. So I want to thank you very much, Enver, on behalf of CoSAFF, for being with us today, for letting us screen your film, for the work that you're doing, and we're really looking forward to seeing Pourquoi, about Dulcie September. It is a fascinating story, and there are so many stories to tell, so we're glad you're telling these. And with that, have a beautiful evening, and thank you, viewers, for being part of the CoSAFF screening today of Someone to Blame, the Ahmed Timol Inquiry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Enver.
Thank you for having me.
To Imtiaz Kashe, and we missed him today, but maybe we'll connect with him one of these days. Thank you very much for being here. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.